Morning sunlight filtered in through the slanted courthouse windows, the light slicing across the highly polished floor like a knife. The buzz of hushed rumors reverberated from all corners. Reporters crowded the benches, pens clicking, cameras poised for the ideal snapshot. The case already had national interest. Brown vs. Brown. For years, the sister wives' family had existed under the glare of the microscope. But today was different. Today wasn't about television drama or polygamy. Today was about truth. A truth that threatened to destroy everything Kody Brown had constructed. Meri sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands gripping a folder tightly. Within it were the documents she'd spent months concealing, guarding, and fearing. She ran her fingers along the sides of the envelope as if she were burning it. Kody and Robyn sat across from her, whispering to their lawyer. Kody's jaw was clenched, his eyes cold and unyielding. Robyn's lips quivered, mascara smudged slightly, the sort of thing one only notices when someone cried first before coming in. The bailiff brought the court to order. The judge came in, serene, authoritative, and demonstrably in command of the fact that this was no run-of-the-mill family feud. "This court will come to order in the case of Brown versus Brown," he declared. Meri Brown versus Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. The air was thick with tension. Each breath sounded too loud. Meri's attorney, a sharp woman named Hannah Steele, stood and began the opening statement. "Your Honor, this isn't about fame. This isn't about a family on television. This is about deception. Deliberate, calculated deception that has caused emotional, financial, and psychological harm to my client, Meri Brown." Robyn's face tightened, and she leaned toward Kody. He didn't move. His hands remained folded, knuckles white. Hannah went on. "Meri thought for years that her marriage was sacred, even when the world made it a spectacle. But what she learned last year broke all the illusions. What she uncovered, Your Honor, is evidence, scientific evidence, that one of Kody and Robyn's children is not who they say he is." The courtroom gasped. Cameras snapped like gunfire. Kody shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous!" he shouted. The judge's gavel slammed. "Mr. Brown, sit down or you'll be removed from this courtroom." Meri didn't blink. Her gaze locked with Kody's for a split, razor-sharp second. Years of hurt, shame, and betrayal burned back at him. She'd been quiet when he replaced her, smiled for cameras when she shattered on the inside, and now she was finished. The judge nodded at Hannah. "Proceed, Ms. Steele." She walked up to the bench, placing a sealed envelope on it. "Your Honor, this is an authenticated DNA test done by an outside laboratory. My client will illustrate how the findings oppose what the defendants publicly claimed." Robyn's head fell. Her shoulders began to quiver. Kody whispered something to her, but she turned away, eyes red, lips shaking. Meri breathed slowly. In her head, memories of the past flashed before her. The dinner nights, the confessions, the sleepless nights spent wondering why things stopped being the same once Robyn came into the family. The laughing that became fighting, the love that became silence. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when she believed they were meant to be, that her faith, her sacrifices, and her patience meant something. But then came the phone calls that went unanswered, the missed holidays, and the lies. And when the paperwork for the legal divorce arrived so Kody could marry Robyn for the sake of adoption, Meri's world cracked. She believed that was the worst it was going to get. She was mistaken. Hannah pressed a button, and the courtroom screen flashed on with an email, a confidential one Meri had stumbled upon in error. It was from a lab and was addressed to Kody and Robyn. The subject line, "DNA confirmation, confidential." Meri's voice, quiet but firm, filled the silence. "I wasn't supposed to see it. I was never supposed to know," Robyn cried softly. Kody's face contorted with anger. The judge looked at the screen. "Mr. Brown, do you care to enlighten us about this exchange?" Kody shifted forward, his voice low and mean. "Your Honor, this is being distorted. That test was taken years ago for personal reasons." "It has nothing to do with your public announcement," Hannah cut in. "Nothing to do with the child you publicly proclaimed as your own?" Kody stood still. Robyn leaned down, the judge arched a brow. "We will see the evidence in its entirety." "Proceed, Ms. Steele," Hannah nodded. "Your Honor, the findings were cross-checked by 2 labs. The test demonstrates, unequivocally, that Kody Brown is not the biological father of Robyn's youngest child. The air was torn from the room. Someone gasped. A reporter breathed, "Oh my God." Kody's lawyer sprang up. "Objection! Irrelevant and prejudicial." The judge scowled. "Overruled. Go on?" Meri didn't seem triumphant. She seemed weary. Years of silence had brought her to this exact moment, but relief there was not, only sadness. Robyn's weeping was louder. "You don't know," she blurted abruptly, her voice quivering. "You don't know what it was like. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was protecting someone." Her statements caused a murmur among the audience. Kody spun abruptly toward her. "Robyn, shut up," but it was already too late. Tears rolled down her face as she gazed at Meri. "I never wanted this to happen. I thought you'd despise me forever if you discovered." Meri's face softened for only a moment, then hardened once more. "You didn't have to lie, Robyn. You only had to be truthful." "We all did." The judge asked for a brief recess. Cameras flooded the aisle as Meri stood up, calm and quiet. Reporters yelled questions, but she kept walking. She moved toward the window, looking out at the gray sky. The truth was finally revealed, or so everyone assumed, because what everyone in that courtroom didn't know, not Kody, not Robyn, not even the judge, was that this DNA test wasn't the secret Meri had brought with her. Inside her bag was another envelope, one that could flip the entire case, and their family, on its head once again. And in the next session, she'd choose whether to open it. ChatGPT replied. There was a hum of whispers in the courthouse cafeteria. There was the smell of burnt coffee and tension hanging in the air. Everybody was discussing the same subject. The DNA bombshell. Reporters had already posted headlines. Kody Brown's secret revealed in court. Cameras were behind Meri wherever she went, but she walked silently, steadfast, eyes ahead. She had waited years for this day, but secretly, she knew it wasn't over. The truth was still not complete. When the court reassembled, the atmosphere had shifted. Kody and Robyn arrived back tense. Robyn's makeup was even less than before, her eyes puffy from weeping. Kody, on the other hand, appeared angry. Not at the court, though, but at Meri. His gaze was piercing, biting, full of bitterness. The judge arrived, and the room was quiet once more. "We will proceed where we were," he stated. "The results of the DNA test have been placed into the record. The court will now receive testimony from the plaintiff." Meri rose, her heels striking softly on the floor. For an instant she wavered. Her hand touched the envelope in her bag, the second envelope, but she held back. Not yet. The courtroom wasn't prepared for that truth. Steeling herself, she looked directly ahead. "Your Honor, I remained silent for far too long. I thought what I was being told. I trusted Robyn and Kody. But then I saw that email. I found out about that DNA test. I knew that I'd been defending a falsehood." Her voice shook but gained strength with each sentence. "This isn't revenge. This is about honesty. I lived for years in the spotlight of a family founded on faith and love. Behind that spotlight, though, was darkness, manipulation, favoritism, and lies." Kody's lawyer stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant to the claim." "Overruled," the judge declared softly. "I would like to hear this," Meri went on, her gaze softening for a moment. "When we began this journey as sister wives, we vowed to one another, to support, to share, to love equally. But that vow died the day Kody started concealing things from me. I watched him walk away. I watched him create a new life with Robyn while instructing me to be patient." Kody brought his hand down on the table. "That's not true. You departed emotionally well before I ever—" Meri interrupted him ruthlessly. "You replaced me, Kody. You replaced me in every sense that counted. You made me feel I didn't exist, until you needed me for your public image." The judge held up a hand. "Mr. Brown, calm down." Kody's attorney instructed him to remain calm in a hushed whisper, but it was too late. His tirade only pushed the crowd in toward him. Robyn grasped for Kody's arm. "Please stop," she whispered. "You're making things worse." Kody brushed her hand away. "You don't get to say that after what you've done." That one sentence locked up the room. Robyn's face turned white. Her lips parted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kody, please don't." He swiveled to her, eyes blazing with anger. "You lied to me also, Robyn. You said that test was an error, that it didn't signify anything." The courtroom exploded once more. Gasps, murmurs, pandemonium. The judge rapped the gavel.
"Order! Order in this court!"
Meri remained immobile, her heart thumping. It was happening. The Fishers were finally appearing. Robyn's voice cracked.
"I did it for you!
For the family!
I was trying to protect us!"
Protect us from what? Kody bellowed. She wept. From the truth. Meri's attorney Hannah moved forward cautiously. "Mrs. Brown, when you say that you were protecting your family from the truth, what truth are we talking about precisely?" Robyn glanced between Meri and Kody, trapped, her thoughts racing. "It wasn't meant to come this far. I lied about the father." A wave of gasps swept through the courtroom. Even Meri's breath was taken away. Kody's voice was low and deadly. "Say it out loud, Robyn," she shut her eyes. "The biological father of the child is not you." The words fell like thunder. Kody's whole body rigidified. His face emptied, the shock barely containing its register. Reporters clattered away. Hannah leaned forward, prodding. "Who is the father, then?" Robyn shook her head, crying. "He's dead. It doesn't matter anymore." "It does matter," Meri said softly. "It matters because it makes sense of why you both lied." Robyn's shoulders trembled. "It was before the wedding, before we were all in this together. I discovered that I was pregnant and had no idea what to do. Kody told me that we could manage it between us, that it would make no difference. But then the show began filming and everything was altered. He instructed me to be quiet. He said that if anyone discovered, it would ruin us all." Kody hid his face in his hands. "Robyn, be quiet." She ignored him, her eyes pleading with Meri through red, tear-bright-hued eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to belong. I thought if we appeared perfect, perhaps we could make it through." Robyn did not respond. The judge ordered another recess, but no one stirred this time. The quiet hung heavy, smothering. Meri sat back down, her thoughts whirling. Her anger dissipated, replaced by something else. Sympathy. Robyn was shattered, ensnared in the same web she'd contributed to. But Kody, he was different. He rose, approached the window, and grumbled, "They're all turning on me. Everyone." His attorney attempted to grab him back. "Kody, sit down, please." He spun around suddenly. "No, you don't get it. They want to destroy me. Meri's doing it out of revenge. Robyn's doing it because she's weak. They can't deal with the truth." The judge's eyebrow went up. "And what truth would that be, Mr. Brown?" Kody was indecisive, casting suspicious glances toward Meri. "She's not saying it all to you either. Meri's keeping something back." Every head turned toward her. Meri stood frozen. The second envelope. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. "That's enough, Kody," she spoke softly. But Kody's smile grew colder. "You see, Judge, my wife," he caught himself. "My ex-wife has her own secrets. She's acting the victim, but she's playing at this game for months." "Enough," Hannah warned. Kody's voice increased in volume. "She's not innocent. She's got another test. Another piece of evidence she hasn't told us about yet." Ask her what's in that damn envelope!" The courtroom gasped once again. Robyn's eyes went wide. "Meri, what is he talking about?" Meri gritted her jaw. Her hand crept into her bag, and she placed it on the second envelope. She glared at the judge, then at the public, then at Kody, the man who had shattered her heart and now had the courage to reveal her. She stood up, her voice steady, but quivering beneath. "Yes, I have another envelope, but unlike yours, Kody, mine holds the truth you've been avoiding your whole life." The crowd gasped as Meri walked away, holding her bag close. Behind her, Robyn cried softly, and Kody's eyes blazed with icy anger. No one had a clue what was inside that envelope, but one thing was sure. Whatever would follow would alter everything forever. The following morning, the courthouse was abuzz with news vans and flashbulbs. Reporters shouted questions as soon as Meri emerged from her car. "Meri, what's in the second envelope? Is Kody keeping another family hidden? Will Robyn take the stand again?" Meri said nothing. Her sunglasses covered the weariness in her eyes, and her lawyer, Hannah Steele, escorted her wordlessly through the sea of microphones. Each step towards the courtroom felt more burdensome than the last. Within, tension was thicker than it had been. Even the air seemed chillier. The judge arrived, his face somber. He knew the world was paying attention. When he brought the session to order, Meri rose slowly. The courtroom came forward as one held breath. "Your Honor," she began, her voice firm but low, "yesterday's testimony disclosed one truth. But there is another that needs to be shared." She pulled the second envelope from her bag. Her hand shook slightly as she held it aloft. "This," she said, "holds results from a second DNA test, one that was done more than 2 decades ago. One never intended to see daylight." Kody shifted in his chair. His lawyer inched forward, speaking in a whisper, but Kody's jaw clenched. He knew all too well what she was gripping. Robyn appeared lost, her red-rimmed eyes bouncing between them. "What is she saying, Kody?" He said nothing. Meri gave the envelope to the bailiff, who gave it to the judge. The paper rustled quietly in the silence. The judge opened it, reading. His eyes raised, keen and inquiring. "Mrs. Brown," he said, "do you realize how serious what's printed here is?" Meri nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. That's why I'm here." "This document," he said slowly, "confirms that a DNA test conducted 22 years ago determined that Kody Brown is not the biological father of Meri Brown's child." The courtroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, chaos. Cameras flashed like lightning. Robyn's hand flew to her mouth. "What?" she whispered, staring at Meri in shock. Kody's chair creaked as he rose.
That's a lie.
That test was inconclusive. It was never confirmed. But Meri didn't blink. Her voice was gentle, racked. "You're right, Kody. It wasn't confirmed then, because you saw to it that it wasn't. You dug up the paperwork. You bribed the lab to keep its mouth shut." Kody's face reddened.
That's ridiculous.
"You can't prove it." Meri's lawyer stepped forward, waving a different sheet of paper. "In fact, we can. The previous technician in the lab gave a sworn affidavit explaining the payment and the order that directly came from Mr. Kody Brown." The judge glared at Kody. "Mr. Brown, is that true?" Kody's lips parted, but he said nothing. He appeared cornered, desperate. Robyn whispered, "Kody, you did this?" He turned on her. "Don't you start, Robyn. You don't know what was at stake." "Then help us know," Meri said, her stare fixed on him. "Why? Why would you lie about being my child's father?" Kody's face contorted, half anger, half shame. "Because it would have destroyed everything," he flashed. "The family, the church, the show, all we accomplished." He pounded his hand on the table, his voice escalating. "I did what I had to do to protect us." For a moment, no one said anything. Even the judge paused. Robyn stared at them, her tears resuming. "So you knew all along? You knew she wasn't—" Kody's silence was his answer. Meri's heart ached. She hadn't planned to reveal this part of her life. The pain was too old, too deep, but now it was out. The secret she'd carried alone for decades. She spoke quietly, as if to herself. "I wasted years thinking that I wasn't worthy of love because of that falsehood. I wondered if perhaps I had done something wrong. But it wasn't me who sinned, Kody. It was you who preferred lies over the truth." Her words lingered like thunder following a storm. Kody attempted to take back control, his voice changing from anger to defense. "You think this makes you innocent? You think you can rewrite history?"
You lied too, Meri.
"You kept things from me, from all of us." Meri's chin jerked up. "Yes, I did keep secrets. I kept my pain. I kept the nights I cried myself asleep as you grinned on TV. I kept the fact that I was shattering while making it seem like everything was okay." The judge shattered the silence at last. "Mr. Brown, the court will have to check the validity of this document. In the meantime, I suggest you keep quiet unless addressed." Kody slumped back into his chair, shoulders tense, eyes smoldering with anger. Robyn dabbed at her tears, her voice a mere whisper. "All these years we were attempting to be this ideal family, and the whole thing was a deception." Meri looked at her. "It didn't have to be. The truth does not kill families, Robyn. Deception does." Hannah moved forward. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, my client would like to have a witness verify the second document." The judge nodded. "Proceed." The door swung open, and a woman in her late 40s walked into the courtroom. Her hair was pulled back, her face solemn but recognizable. Kody's eyes flew wide. No, not her. The woman sat down in the stand. "Please state your name for the record," the judge instructed. "Lydia Walker," she answered. "I worked as a lab technician for Western Diagnostics 2 decades ago." Hannah inquired. "Ms. Walker, do you see that document?" She nodded. "Yes, I signed it myself." These were the findings of a paternity test between Meri Brown's child and Kody Brown. The findings were unequivocal. There was no genetic match. Did anything out of the ordinary occur afterward? Lydia paused, looking over at Kody. Yes. 7 days later, Mr. Brown appeared in my lab in person. He paid me an amount of money to label the test inconclusive and shred the files. I declined. But the next month, I was fired for no reason. The courtroom exploded once more. Kody's attorney vehemently objected, but the harm had already been inflicted. The judge leaned back and rubbed his temples. "Mr. Brown, this testimony, if substantiated, could have drastic legal repercussions." Kody remained silent. His face was white now, the mask breaking totally. Meri sat silently, her hands folded together. This wasn't victory. It was mourning. All those years of pretense had come to this. A public stripping of the man she once adored. She didn't want revenge anymore. She just desired peace. The judge ordered a brief recess. While the courtroom cleared, Robyn stayed behind, moving slowly towards Meri. "Meri," she breathed. I had no idea. About your child. About any of it." Meri nodded gently. "I think you do believe me." Robyn's eyes welled with tears. "He lied to us both." Meri's face was inscrutable. "Yes, and he'll continue to lie until someone finally puts an end to it." Rain began to fall outside the courthouse, drizzling against the high windows like muted applause. Meri gazed out into the storm, appropriate, she believed, because today was the day things would never be the same again in their world. Rain pounded the courthouse stairs the following morning. Umbrellas stretched in a sea of black as reporters crowded near, needing a glimpse of Kody Brown. He showed up late, in a dark suit, and a face that appeared chiseled from stone. No words, no smile, no cameras greeted. He floated through the blinding lights like a specter walking to meet his own judgment. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Meri sat wordlessly next to her lawyer, a serene mask covering her face but revealing nothing. The turmoil of the previous days had taken their toll. Her shoulders slumped under the heaviness of both truth and revelation. Robyn sat a few rows back, hands in tight fists, her eyes puffy from lack of sleep. As the judge entered, the room caught its breath. "This court will hear testimony from Mr. Kody Brown," he stated, low but authoritative. Kody rose slowly, every motion deliberate. He adjusted his jacket, straightened his tie, and walked to the witness stand with the confidence of a man who once believed he could control every story told about him. But this wasn't his show anymore. It was Meri's. He took the oath, his hand trembling only slightly, then settled in. His lawyer nodded to him, whispering, "Be calm. Stay in control." For an instant he did. "Your Honor," Kody said, his voice smooth but weary. "I won't lie. I haven't been perfect. I'm not a perfect man, but anything I did was for my family." The judge leaned forward. "Are you claiming you withheld the results of the paternity test?" Kody hesitated, jaw clenching. "I shielded my family from embarrassment." "That's not a crime," the courtroom murmured. Hannah Steele, Meri's lawyer, rose. "Safeguarding your family? Or safeguarding your reputation, Mr. Brown?" Kody's gaze darted toward her. "You have no idea what it's like to be under the public microscope, to have millions of people scrutinize every detail of your life. Then why keep the show on?" Hannah interrogated. "Why sign a further season if you knew already that your marriage and your narrative were based on a pack of lies?" Kody's tone turned cold. "Because the truth doesn't pay the bills." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Hannah did not retreat. "So, to be clear, you're telling me you traded fame and financial security for honesty?" "I traded survival," Kody growled. "You think the world needed the truth?" "No, they needed drama, love stories, and faith." They needed to believe in us. I provided it for them. Mary's eyes welled up with tearless tears, not because of his words, but because for the first time, he was telling the truth. The judge took notes. Mr. Brown, this court has no interest in entertainment contracts. This court has an interest in the aftermath of lies, emotional, monetary, and otherwise. You deceived your family and the public. How do you explain that? Kody leaned forward. Because they needed me to lead. Even when they didn't like me, they needed me. Meri whispered softly. We needed the truth, not a dictator. Kody's head whipped around to her, anger blazing in his eyes. You think you were the only one hurting, Meri? You abandoned me a long time before any of this. You closed off, shut me out, and when Robyn showed up, you used her as your reason to despise me. Meri rose to her feet, unable to keep it inside anymore. You substituted me the moment she walked in, Kody. You gazed at her like you saw salvation and at me like I was a weight. The judge pounded the gavel. Enough. Sit down, both of you. They complied, but the air was still charged, years of anger simmering on the surface. Hannah came at him again, her voice firm. Mr. Brown, did you know that making payments to a laboratory to change or destroy medical results is fraud? Kody's attorney protested. Speculative. Overruled, instructed the judge. Kody seemed stuck, looking at his hands. I didn't think it would come this far. I wanted to correct things before they got out of control. Correct things? Hannah asked. Or dig them up? He rose quickly, eyes flashing. You don't understand. The day that test returned, my whole idea about my family changed. If that got out, the network would have canceled us. Our church would have excommunicated me. And all that I struggled for would have been gone. Rain pounded the courthouse steps the next morning. Umbrellas created a sea of black as reporters stood huddled close, grasping for a glimpse of Kody Brown. He was late, dressed in a black suit and a face carved out of stone. No words, no grins, no cameras greeted. He glided past the blinding lights as if he were a ghost appearing to face his own judgment. Inside the courtroom, it was packed. Meri sat quietly next to her lawyer, her face serene but inscrutable. The turmoil of the past couple of days had worn her out. Her shoulders sagged under the burden of truth and discovery. Robyn sat a couple of rows back, hands folded tightly, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. As the judge came in, the whole room seemed to take a collective breath. This court will now hear testimony from Mr. Kody Brown, he said, speaking in a low but authoritative tone. Kody rose slowly, every motion deliberate. He adjusted his jacket, straightened his tie, and walked to the witness stand with the confidence of a man who once believed he could control every story told about him. But this wasn't his show anymore. It was Meri's. He took the oath, his hand trembling only slightly, then settled in. His lawyer nodded to him, whispering, "Be calm. Stay in control." For an instant he did. "Your Honor," Kody started, his voice smooth but fatigued. "I won't act like I haven't committed errors. I'm not a perfect man, but whatever I did was for my family." The judge leaned forward. "Are you saying that you hid the results of the paternity test?" Kody paused, jaw clenching. "I shielded my family from shame." "That's not criminal." The courtroom buzzed. Hannah Steele, Meri's lawyer, rose. "Safeguarding your family? Safeguarding your reputation, Mr. Brown?" Kody's gaze shifted to her. "You don't understand what it's like to live in the public eye, to have millions watching your every step." "Then why keep going on?" Hannah demanded. "Why agree to another season when you already knew your marriage and your narrative were founded on deceit?" Kody's voice grew cold. "Because the truth doesn't pay the bills." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Meri's heart dropped. There it was. The genuine confession without pretense. Hannah didn't flinch. "So, just to get this straight, you're saying you sacrificed honesty for fame and financial stability?" "I picked survival," Kody barked. "You think the world wanted the truth?" "No, they wanted drama, love stories, and faith. They wanted to believe in us. I gave them what they wanted." Meri's eyes overflowed with soft tears. Not because of what he'd said, but because for the first time, he wasn't lying. The judge jotted down some notes. "Mr. Brown, this court is not interested in entertainment contracts. We're interested in the repercussions of deception, emotional, financial, and otherwise. You deceivingly manipulated your family and the public. How do you rationalize that? Kody sat up. Because they needed me to lead. Even when they hated me, they needed me. Meri breathed softly under her breath. We needed the truth, not a dictator. Kody's head jerked toward her, anger burning in his eyes. You think you were the only one hurting, Meri? You left me before any of this. You closed off, shut me out, and when Robyn existed, you used her as your justification to despise me. Meri stood abruptly, unable to keep it inside anymore. You filled my place the moment she walked in, Kody. You gazed at her like you saw salvation and at me as if I was a burden. The judge brought down his gavel. That's enough! Sit down, both of you. They did so, but the air was still charged, years of bitterness coming to the surface. Hannah stepped forward once more, her voice firm. Mr. Brown, did you realize that it's fraud to pay off a lab to change or destroy medical reports? Kody's attorney protested. Speculative. Overruled, replied the judge. Kody paused, looking down at his fingers. I didn't think it would come to this. I just wanted to make things right before they got out of control. Make things right? Hannah asked. Or bury them. He glared at her. You don't get it. The minute that test result came back, all my ideas about my family were altered. If that got out, the network would have cut us loose. Our church would have excommunicated me, and all my hard work would have been lost. Meri was leaning in, her words shaking. You chose power over love, Kody. That's what broke us. For once, he didn't respond. The judge sighed deeply. Mr. Brown, the court must now determine whether your actions constitute perjury and defamation. We'll also examine potential restitution for emotional distress and fraud. Kody's lawyer whispered frantically in his ear, but Kody brushed him off. No, he muttered. Let them hear it all. He looked at the audience, his voice cracking. You want to know why I did it? Because I was afraid of losing everything, afraid of being nothing. I thought if I kept it together, perhaps we could still be a family. But the truth is, I lost them long before the cameras stopped rolling. A silence so long seemed to fall over everyone present. Even Meri's rage mellowed for a moment. Robyn sobbed softly, holding her hand over her mouth as tears dripped. Kody, she breathed, her voice tiny and shattered. He gazed at her but said nothing. The burden of his own deceptions threatened to knock him off the stand. Next, Hannah addressed him in an icy voice. Mr. Brown, one last question. Did you ever intend to be truthful? Kody shook his head. No, I couldn't. If I had told the truth, all of that I worked for would have crumbled. The show, the family, the belief that we were something different. It was all a lie. But it was mine to keep. Meri's breath caught in he. The courthouse hummed well ahead of the arrival of the judge. Each bench was occupied, each reporter poised, each lens trained upon the vacant seat into which Kody Brown would shortly be seated. Outside, it was a still and gray morning, like the peaceful silence preceding the storm that everyone anticipated. Meri came early, wearing navy blue, reliable, calm, unbreakable. Exhaustion was there in her eyes, but something fierce, too. Peace. Robyn came a little later, keeping out of shot, her hair swept back in a tight ponytail, the tension of weeks mapped on her face. She didn't glance at Kody when he eventually emerged, flanked by his lawyer, 10 years older than he'd been yesterday. He did not greet anyone. Not the media, not Robyn, not even the fans who once idolized him. He simply sat down, his eyes fixed straight ahead at the judge's bench, as though he already knew the verdict. When the judge entered, there was silence. The air was thick. Each breath weighed, every whisper hushed. Having examined all testimonies, evidence and statements given here, the judge continued, what we have seen here is not just a family fight. It's a cycle of lying, domination, and emotional abuse, fueled by fame and wealth. Meri's fingers gripped the lip of the table. Kody Brown, the judge went on, you withheld the outcome of a legal DNA test, falsified records through third-party payments, and deceived people for image retention purposes and for financial purposes. Although this court is aware that your actions weren't done for profit, they were done for image preservation, and that is also deceptive. The words rested there like a bell that couldn't be unrung. Kody swallowed hard. His attorney whispered, "Don't react," but his hands trembled. The judge looked toward Meri. "Mrs. Brown, this court acknowledges the emotional suffering you endured due to this deception. The law cannot erase the years you've lost, but it can hold accountable those responsible." Meri blinked back tears, her chin trembling, but she stayed strong. The judge smoothed his notes. Thus, the court declares Mr. Kody Brown guilty of willful obstruction, falsification of evidence, and defamation. Sentencing shall be done after restitution agreements are reached. This hearing is adjourned. Gasps filled the courtroom. Cameras popped. Chairs collided with tables. Some cheered softly. Others sighed in stunned silence. Kody slumped in his seat, eyes vacant. For a prolonged moment, Meri remained still. She just closed her eyes and breathed out, not in victory, but in letting go. Decades of silence, manipulation, and humiliation melted with that one finding. Robyn slowly rose, her mouth open, tears streaming down her face. She regarded Kody, the man she once had thought could never fail. "How could you?" she whispered. "After all of it?" He faced her, his eyes empty. "I thought I was keeping you safe." "Keeping me safe?" Robyn's voice cracked. "You broke us. All of us." She flung out of the room, past the popping cameras and hollering reporters calling out her name. Kody sat frozen, his lawyer folding up discreetly next to him. "We'll appeal," the lawyer grumbled. Kody did not respond. He simply breathed. "There's nothing left to save." Meri stood up, picking up her files. Hannah, her lawyer, smiled sweetly. "It's done, Meri, you did it." Meri shook her head. "No, it isn't done. But perhaps now, it can finally start." She stepped out of the courtroom, and the hallway burst with reporters. "Meri, do you have a statement? Is it true the DNA test confirms Robyn's child is not Kody's? Will you speak publicly about your situation?" Meri hesitated, her own face serene beneath the harsh lights. "The truth is out," she said quietly. "That's good enough for me." And then she went out into the cold morning air, where the storm had at last broken. Raindrops splattered on the steps of the courthouse, rinsing away chalk marks and footprints of the mob. Meri stood watching, her eyes raised to the gray sky, feeling the rain on her face. Like baptism. Like freedom. And while that was all going on, within the courthouse, Kody sat by himself. The benches were now vacant, the commotion over. He glanced about the courtroom once his own personal stage. The wooden walls, the microphones, the vacant witness stand. All reminders of the man he was, and the truth that had finally found him. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small photograph. His family, smiling from an old Sister Wives promo shoot. Meri's smile was soft then. Robyn's eyes were full of hope. Christine and Janelle stood close, hands clasped. Back when everything looked perfect. Kody stared at the photo for a long time before whispering, "We were never that happy, were we?" He put it down on the table and left it there. Outside, Robyn stood under a column, weeping soundlessly. Meri came slowly forward, uncertain. "You don't have to talk," Robyn said, her voice breaking. "I know I was complicit. I stood up for him when I shouldn't have." Meri shook her head. "You wanted to believe in him. We all did. That's not your fault, that's his." Robyn dried her tears. "What do I do now?" Meri glanced out into the distance. At the crowd, at the churning cameras, at the unsure world that was holding its breath for the next move. "Now," she murmured, "now we live without lies." They stood there for a time. Two women held together by pain but finally free. Later that evening, a breaking news crawl appeared on television screens. Footage from the courtroom played. Meri testifying, Kody's confession, Robyn's tears. The internet blew up. Comment spaces filled with outrage, shock, and heartbreak. Fans who had previously loved Kody turned on him overnight. Some said he had gotten what he had coming. Others said it was karma getting him back. But Meri didn't read the comments. She sat by her window, looking out into the quiet street, sipping tea. For the first time in years, her phone was silent. No producers, no scripts, no publicist calls. Just peace. A soft knock came at her door. It was Hannah. You okay? Meri smiled faintly. I don't know yet, but I'm not scared anymore. They sat there in silence for a moment before Hannah stood up to go. You did the right thing, Meri. Meri smiled. The truth always prevails, even if it takes a while. Once Hannah had gone, Meri gazed at an old wedding band resting on her nightstand. She picked it up, examined it in the soft light, and then placed it in a small box, closing it quietly. She said softly, "Goodbye, Kody." Outside, the rain had lifted. A weak light cut through the clouds, warm and golden, casting the world in a new light. Meri smiled under that light, not for the cameras, not for the people watching, but for herself. And even though the world still hummed with gossip, speculation, and talk shows analysis every single word of the trial, Meri didn't care, for to her the verdict wasn't so much justice, it was freedom.